Hi there. My name is Karen Friedland, and thanks for joining me for the first time that I'm doing a Facebook Live broadcast. I've got a great project today that is demonstrating a technique that I just developed myself. So this is the first time it's being shared, and I'm really glad you're here to see it. This came out of one day I was messing around with things and experimenting, and I created this lovely piece, and I couldn't figure out how to replicate it. And so I have since been doing other pieces similar to it, but all of them entailed a lot of special inks and the like. So I decided to come up with a new way to do it, and this one only requires using sharpies. So today, if you want to work along with me, what you need are 3 Sharpie pens, a piece of plexiglass, a piece of watercolor paper, a paintbrush, a piece of aluminum foil, a pen, pencil, or something that you can use to make a mark with as a stylus, some black paint, and I think that's about it. And this is, the way we start is real simple. You just use your Sharpie and start coloring on the plexiglass. And it doesn't matter what kind of shape you color or what it looks like, as long as you're depositing a good amount of ink onto the plexiglass. So you want to make sure that your Sharpies that you're using are pretty fresh and nice and white, nice and wet, and you can just color along with them in no particular order. I just want to get as much coverage as I can, so I tend to double back over them, so I get as strong a deposit of ink as possible. And this blue is the strongest color we'll be working with today, so actually I realized that I don't have to scribble over it quite as much as I do with my other colors, which are not quite as saturated as this blue is. Whoops. I taped my plate down to my background paper so that it wouldn't slide all around. I've had that problem in the past, but it's not vital that you do that. Maybe yours won't slide. Okay, so that's my first color, and then I'm going to add the fuchsia hot pink. See, this one is not very juicy. It was juicy earlier, but it's not doing as well as it had been. So I think I will change to this other one that I have, which is a newer pen, and should be able to give me some more ink deposited onto the plate. And see, that's getting a little deeper, and I'm just moving all around the printing plate, the piece of plexiglass, in a variety of shapes. Doesn't really matter. I just want to get some good coverage with these colors. And if you're coloring along, you can see that the more layers you add onto them, the richer and deeper the colors get. So that's always one way to ensure that you'll get a nice rich print, by going back over them if you like. Oops. And I chose these three colors because there was some contrast, but not too terribly contrasty. These colors are nice and rich, and they'll make a strong print. But if you want something more subtle, just pick more pastel colors from your Sharpies. I think it's kind of time for me to buy a new set of Sharpies because my big ones are getting tired. Of course, back to school is always handy time to buy these supplies. If there's still any specials left, I forget that it's already been Halloween, not having any kids in school anymore. So I don't know if there's any way that you can communicate with me. I would love to know who's there and where you're from and that kind of thing. I'm here in Brooklyn, New York. And I'm principally a painter, but I work in a lot of different media and visual arts, and I'm also a teaching artist for many years. I work for the Brooklyn Arts Council as well as other organizations. And then I thought the third color that would be a nice complement to this group would be this greeny teal or turquoisey color. Seems like my pens, since I checked them earlier today, have gotten tired and aren't depositing quite as much ink as I'd like on the plexiglass. But when you have more time than I, you can go over it several times and build up these colors so they're nice and strong. Stronger the colors, the deeper the print will be. I'm wondering if any of you are printmakers out there. I do a fair amount of printmaking, but it's usually off press, and I don't have particular skills in anything other than monotype printing, which I love a lot and use whenever I can, and this is a form of monotype printing. So I think we're going to be ready to print very shortly. So we got pretty good coverage here on this, and I like to fill in much of the plate. You don't have to fill in the whole thing. Of course, the spaces that are not filled in will be white, and that can add a beautiful contrast to your piece as well. Oh, here. We just need one more over here. So, after you've done as much scribbling as you care to on your printing plate, you get the secret ingredient, which is hand sanitizer. Hand sanitizer is mostly alcohol, so it works to dilute to dilute the inks. So I'm putting squirts all over our printing plate. And then, once we get a good amount on here, I use a pouncing action to spread it around. And the reason I use pounce is that, as you see, the colors are diluting already, the blue in particular. And in fact, if one feels that there's been too much transfer of color, you can go in and blot a little bit. Not too effective, I can see. And so you want to pounce very gently. And I'll wipe my fingers off a bit so I get some of that blue off my fingers as I go to the other colors. And you want to make sure that you have your whole printing plate covered with the hand sanitizer. Doesn't have to be smooth. And in fact, if you tried to smooth it out, you'd end up blending all the colors together and experiencing a bit of a muddy mess. So I would not recommend you doing that. You can lift it up and see how your coverage is. I've just got this taped down. There we go. I don't know if you can see it on here, but it looks like it's pretty well covered. And then I'll set it back down again. Take out a piece of watercolor paper. I bought this watercolor paper in Ireland, where my daughter was going to graduate school. And you can use any kind of paper. You can use Arches or Strathmore or Fabriano or Bristol paper, Bristol board or printmaking paper. Each of them might have a slightly different effect, but all of them would be really effective for this printing technique. And then we're going to carefully lay this down. I'm trying to get it somewhat centered. Put it down without moving it. You know, don't smush it around too much. Oops. And then you press it all around, smoothing from the center outward to try and smooth out any bubbles and to make full contact with your paper. Now you can use anything you like to smooth it out. I have a card here. That works. You can see it's already coming through the paper, because these inks are really very strong pigments. Or you can use a brayer. To make sure that the whole thing has worked its way down. Now we'll gently lift it up, holding it in place to see how the print is, how it came out. This is, I see a place where you're missing some. I'm going to take a little bit more hand sanitizer, and I found that I can apply the hand sanitizer right to the paper, and then I know I'm getting it in exactly the spots I want it. And let's see what happens when we press that down again. See if that does better for us. And meanwhile, we can check it from the other side. See how we did here. Oh, I think I'm going to add some hand sanitizer here as well, because we have a couple of spots that we haven't transferred so well. Okay. Now these should do much better. Oh, extra hand sanitizer. Press that down. Let's see how the top did. Oh yeah, those things came out well. And the bottom here. Oh, I think we've got a fabulous print. Okay, and there's our finished print. I think it's a real beauty. So once we have that gorgeous print, it's a great foundation for anything else that you want to do. Once you let it dry, you can work into it with acrylics or alcohol inks or oil pastels, dry pastels, anything that you like, really. So then we've got the second step. I'm going to just put it over here to dry. And I have a print that I did earlier that's already dry that we can use for our second step here. So the second step is based on one of the cards from the Art Sparks deck. Oh, I don't know if you're familiar with the Art Sparks deck, but here it is. It's a creative inspiration project deck that I created. And it has my artwork on one side of the cards, and then on the other side are all these projects that you can do. So we're going to do a project based on card number 8, and it says paint foil black with diluted acrylic. While the paint is wet, gently turn the foil over onto your page. So that's what we're going to do now. I'm going to take my aluminum foil and I'm going to crinkle it up because I like the dimensions that that gives me, and then I open it up and oops, rips a little bit. You want to smooth it enough so you'll be able to work with it, but you really don't need to smooth it out. That kind of defeats the purpose. I just want to get it flat enough so I'll be able to work with it. And then I take some black paint. It's going to be my palette today. This container lid. And you only need a little bit because you're just going to paint it onto this foil. Get my brush. And I want to dilute it somewhat so it goes on very easily and isn't too thick. That may have been a little too watery. We want a consistency that'll stick to the foil some. So you have to have a certain thickness. And just paint the foil across. You don't want to dilute your paint too much because it won't stick to the foil. So I really should have just wet it enough so that it will become viscous enough to paint. And good amount of coverage. Now, the foil, the painted part of the foil is bigger than the print, and if I wanted to keep the edges clean, I could have just taped the edges off on the print, but I'm not going to worry about that today. And get that brush in the water, and I'm going to take the foil and just turn it over onto my paper. And then I could take a pencil or any kind of writing implement. In this case, I'm just going to take the back end of a paintbrush, and I'm going to gently, because you don't want to rip the foil, going to write on the back some. You want to try not to do what I just did, which was rest my hand onto the back of the foil, because that will make an impression. But it's always a surprise to see what you get. You can check it and see if you have enough line work there. I think I'm going to add just a little bit more. I do rather love it, however. And one more there. So this has a very Halloweeny feel to me, since yesterday was Halloween, and it reminds me a lot of a spider web. But here's our finished piece. Put it more in the middle. And I will probably just let it dry and cut it out and mount it on something else so that you don't have the dirty edges. But that's the end of my project. I hope you enjoyed being with me and being on this Facebook Live, and I hope I did it right and that it all recorded. And great to see you, and I'll see you next time. Oh, for the cards and to see more of my artwork and more class things, you can sign up for my mailing list when you go to my website at karenfriedland.com. So I'll look for you over there. Thanks. Thanks for coming. Bye.